Hi, it's Evie with Evie Reads. Today we are going to be talking about Stephen King and his novella Apt Pupil. Comes out of this book right here. The novella was published in 1982 and it is set in 1974 in the United States in the state of California. It is about a teen named Todd and an elderly gentleman who goes by Arthur. Arthur is probably in his 80s. Todd is, I don't know, 16 maybe something like that. I don't remember exactly. But it is about a teen and an elderly man and their very odd friendship. Very odd friendship. So I walked into this story completely clueless, didn't know what to expect. I'm familiar with Stephen King. I know about his horror movies and I've read a few of his books. This shocked me the way that this story played out. I didn't know. I read the inside front cover where it describes what happens in the story. I can show you that right here. Right here talks about a summer of corruption. And oh my goodness gracious, that is exactly what happened. And I think that they corrupted each other. I don't think this kid was innocent at all. He corrupted the old man and the old man corrupted him. Just by mutual interest in a defining moment in our history. I did not expect a 1 minute everything's fine and the next second everything's dark. That's kind of what happened with this. We just went to the extreme really fast. I was hoping that there would be redemption at least for the kid. The elderly gentleman, I wasn't really worried about his redemption because he was working on it, but the kid decided he was just going to take a full deep dive into this darkness. And I was like, okay, well, maybe there's hope for him. Maybe he can realize that this is just a childhood fantasy and he can come around onto the other side and everything would be fine. He would learn some lessons from it and that would be the end of the story. But this is Stephen King, and guess what? It didn't end like that at all. This story was absolutely nuts. I'm referring to my notes. It starts off as a story about a kid who's doing well, hence the title Apt Pupil. He's getting very good grades. He does well in sports, everything. He's just doing great. And everybody has big, dreams about his potential. He could go to college. He could do anything that he wants. He's kind of like a good old boy next door. Blue-eyed blonde kid, just your typical, oh, this is like the popular kid in school. He's going to be great. He's well adjusted to the world. He knows what's expected of him and he knows what he wants to do. Until one day he decides to look at some paraphernalia that one of his friends has in their garage. Now, it belongs to the parents or the grandparents or something like that. So he looks into this box of old magazines and discovers information about the Holocaust and World War II. And he realizes that he is completely fascinated by it. This is what basically drives him to do what he does in the story. So he chases down this old guy, the old man, who is parading around as somebody else who's trying to make their life new. He is a German soldier from World War II, and historically we all know what they did. He was involved with the camps in Germany, and he escaped Germany when the war was over and came to the United States to start a new life. And everything was going fine until this kid finds out about him. So the kid finds out about him and realizes that he has some leverage, and he starts using that leverage to manipulate the old man just to fuel his own fascination with this event. It was just absolutely nuts. We just went from everything is fine till, oh, everything is not fine. It's just amazing to me how much power this kid exerted over the older guy. And it was almost like it was a give and take. Like the older guy would give information, the young kid would take it, and then he would threaten blackmail to get more. It was almost like he was on drugs. It was just crazy. There was a certain scene in the story with the old guy, Arthur, something you don't realize that he's doing to satisfy a certain part of himself. Has to do with animals, and it's awful. It's awful. And when the scene when I came upon the scene in the story, I was appalled. I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm going to put the book down. But I couldn't put the book down. I had to know what was going to happen next. The good thing, though, is that it's not described in a manner where you are imagining your own pets in that scenario. And I'm a dog lover and I don't wish any harm on any animal, but I was just like, if he does this to a dog, I'm done. I can't. Like, I'm one of those people that if something happens to the dog or the horse or whatever in the story, I'm done with it. I cannot. There are certain stories that I won't read simply because I know what happens to the animal in it. Cujo, maybe. Not going to watch that. So as this was progressing, I was like, oh, what? What is happening? How is this happening? How is this going on and nobody knows about it? You know, but I couldn't stop reading it. Like I said, I had to know what happened next. What on earth was going to happen? And at one point, I was trying to figure out how the kid could be saved. And the more I read, like about halfway through this story, I started thinking, okay, this kid is either going to end up dead or he's going to end up in a psychiatric hospital because of how deep he let his fascination go and the depth of the give and take between the old guy and this kid. It was just like, what? He's so far deep that I don't even know if he can recover mentally from what is going on in this story. I knew at a certain point there was no way he was going to get off free. The kid was just going to walk away. No, I didn't see that coming till about halfway into the story. I realized he's in too deep. This is not going to have a happy ending. If you're familiar with Stephen King, then he probably wouldn't be as surprised and shocked as I was. Like I said, I haven't read any of his stories until like the last year or so. And so I read Fairy Tale, 11/22/63, Billy Summers, and then a novella called N. And none of those were scary to me. They were like, N particularly was like, what? What? This is going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever? But it wasn't terrifying. And this story had that psychological aspect to it where you're like, there's no way that this is going to end up happy. Something really bad is going to happen, and you just waiting for it and waiting to see what it's going to be. There were other characters thrown in, like Todd's parents, that's the name of the teenager. Todd's parents are like completely oblivious to their kid. They're like, oh, he's getting good grades, everything's fine. That's kind of how they were. The only other person really was the school counselor, who starts putting things together at some point. He doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he starts having some suspicions about what Todd's actually doing, because there are times where he wasn't going to school and his grades were starting to slip, and it was all because of his obsession and fascination with that period of time. He plays a trick on the school at one point, and it like suddenly dawned on the counselor that he's playing tricks on him and thinks that he can get one over on him. And by the time the counselor figures it out, Todd is already done with school. He's already graduated, but he can't leave it alone, and that's to his detriment. How would I rate this story? I'd give it 5 stars. Simply because I was completely intrigued, even though I was disgusted, and I wanted to know what was going to happen, if Todd was going to make it, if the old man was going to, come to some kind of redemption, like maybe he saves the kid from himself or something like that. That's what I was hoping for. Who do I recommend this for? Definitely not kids. I wouldn't recommend this to young adults. It's definitely not in high school, simply because of the stuff that it touches on. Probably something that I'd wait until I was a full-grown, mature adult to read and pretty sure of myself. This is kind of like, wow, how does Stephen King get into the psyche of people like he does? Where does he get the ideas from? To say, hey, let's put somebody in this situation, and then let's dump in some extra stuff and see what happens. It's where do you get these ideas from? I would recommend it, but not for kids. I like I said, I was just like, what? I was completely dumbstruck. I didn't even know what to think about the story anymore. But I couldn't finish. I couldn't just put it down and not read it. I had to know what was going to happen in the end. So yeah. So if you're out for a Stephen King book that's not quite horror but not quite fairy tale-ish, I'd recommend Apt Pupil. Kind of takes you onto a dark dive of a kid who is doing really well on the outside but not doing so great on the inside. Not really like depression or some other kind of mental health issues, but a really break in his psyche about what he's found himself absolutely obsessed with. And it's amazing the way that Stephen King writes about it. You're almost questioning yourself. You're like, oh, could this happen to me? Could this happen to any, could this happen to anybody? And then what would happen then? So anyway, I'm starting to ramble, but hey, since you're here, go to your library. Go check out a book. If they don't have a book you're looking for, you can ask them to look for it. They might have a network among other libraries in your city or your town or even in other states where they can get you a copy of the book that you're looking for. I definitely recommend that you check out a book rather than buy it, because at least then you get it for free and you'll know whether or not you like it. If you really, really like the book and you want to have a copy later, go ahead and buy it after you read it, but definitely start at your library. My number one recommendation. I'm also going to tell you to be kind to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Show yourself some grace, and be nice to other people too. Show them some grace. Be kind. And adopt, don't chop. Bye.